I couldn't wait.
Couldn't wait.
I was really excited.
I got my license the day that I could.
Oh, the minute he could.
It was awesome. I'm pretty sure the first place I went when I got my license was Taco Bell.
I was really excited. I went and drove everywhere.
To a friend's house so I could show off.
Having that freedom.
Go wherever you want to go.
You don't have to depend on your parents anymore.
Going on dates or something, you don't have to have your mom driving you.
It's just one less thing they have to worry about.
I can just leave my house and I don't really have to tell her like what I'm doing. It's fun to be with your friends in your car and listen to music.
16 is when you start becoming more mature.
Yeah.
I think.
Teenagers in the United States get their licenses earlier than in most other countries, and they have easier access to cars once they're licensed. In many families, giving the car keys to a newly licensed driver means not only freedom for the teenager, but also relief for the parents from seemingly endless chauffeuring duties. But it comes with a potentially high price.
Crashes are the #1 cause of death among teens. Per mile driven, the crash rate for teen drivers is 4 times the crash rate for adults. It's higher still at night, and it's higher when there are other teens riding in the vehicle. It's the highest still right after they get their license. In fact, the crash rate for 16-year-olds is twice as high as the crash rate for 18 and 19-year-olds. During the learner permit, when teens are doing practice driving with their parents in the car, crash rates are really low. That's a very safe way for teens to drive. But once the teen begins to drive without their parent in the car, crash rates skyrocket. Teens are inexperienced drivers. They're more likely to speed.
I think it's fun.
Going 80, 85.
I end up rushing a lot.
They make more driving errors.
I almost hit a person like a week ago.
They take corners too fast.
Yeah, I flipped over my car.
They may follow too closely.
And I rear-ended them.
They're not always able to handle a hazardous situation that pops up for the first time. Driving in bad weather, for example.
It was raining outside and we like skidded and like slid.
An adult driver just has more experience handling a situation like that. Teen drivers tend to minimize their risk and overestimate their driving ability.
I think I'm a good driver.
Yeah, I'd say I'm a pretty good driver.
I think I'm a pretty good driver.
I would say I'm a good driver for now.
And that can get them into trouble.
She just loved people. She made friends easy, and she had a lot of friends. Brenda was a good student. She loved to learn. She was really looking forward to going to college. And I never will forget when she had been watching the mail close for her acceptance letter to see if she got into JMU. And she went to the mailbox that day and she came on back. She come through that door and she said, "Yes, yes, yes." And she opened up the envelope, you know, and she looked and she read it. And I can see her now. She just, "Yes, yes, yes," she said. It was a beautiful January day. The sky was so pretty and blue and the sun was bright. And it was just a lovely day. And that particular day, she didn't have to be to school till 11 o'clock. She sit there and she ate a bowl of cereal and she changed clothes 3 times before she left. When she got in the truck, she put a seatbelt on. When she sit in a vehicle, if she was going to drive or if she was riding, she always put a seatbelt on. And anyway, that morning the police scanner was on, and I just, in the back of my mind, I heard them say that there had been a bad accident on Route 130. And I get on down there, and there's a fireman in the road, you know, directing traffic, and I can see a truck, and I could see the bumper, and I saw the sticker. And I knew it was our truck. So I pulled over to the side of the road. And I asked that fireman, I said, "The little girl driving that truck," I said, "is she hurt bad?" He said, "Are you kin to her?" I said, "Yes, I'm her mother." And by that time, 2 rescue squad workers, one got one side of me and one got on the other side. And I said, the little girl driving that truck, I said, is she hurt bad? And the woman said, yes, ma'am. I said, is she dead? She said, yes, ma'am.
Brandy was an inexperienced driver who died in a crash just 1 month after getting her license. Inexperience contributes to many crashes involving beginners. For 16-year-olds, the first few months of driving is when the risk is highest. Many parents think that driver education is a good way to address some of this risk. It's a good and convenient way to help new drivers learn skills, but parents shouldn't rely on it because poor skills aren't always to blame. Many crashes with young drivers involve their attitudes, not their skills.
New drivers of any age have a higher crash risk, but the issue for teens is that they're coupling that driving inexperience with immaturity.
I love to blast my music in the car.
They're young.
Just driving a car, it's like riding a bike.
They may be prone to risk-taking.
I drive real reckless.
The combination of driving inexperience and immaturity is a lethal combination. It leads to a much higher crash risk for new teen drivers.
She got her license on her 16th birthday. She got her car on her 16th birthday. She had waited for it. We had waited for it. We were just as anxious for her to have her license as she was to have her license. She was probably the kind of child that every parent would hope to have. She took everything life had to offer and made the most of it. She had danced for almost 15 years. She had been a competitor in gymnastics, percussionist in the band, and she loved everything she did, and she could never get enough. Unfortunately, Shannon was 16. She was a teenager behind the wheel. She was going to a slumber party that night, and Shannon had a passenger in the car, and her friend had passed her, and probably a combination of, let me see what my little 4-cylinder car can do. Rebecca saying, come on, Shannon, pass Heidi. And as Shannon tried to pass Heidi, Heidi moved over so Shannon couldn't get by her. Shannon lost control of the car, and she was hooked up to life support for 24 hours, but she got caught up in the spirit of the moment, a little bit of peer pressure, a lot of being a teenager and thinking you're invincible. It won't happen to me.
Shannon's crash was like many other serious ones involving teenagers. It was at night, and it involved speeding and thrill-seeking. Graduated licensing restrictions on young beginning drivers help prevent some of these crashes, and so can restrictions imposed by parents.
The concept behind graduated licensing is to ease teens into driving so that they gain experience in low-risk situations. So the first stage of graduated licensing is a learner's permit. During this period, the parent or another adult is in the car. Then the next stage is what would be called an intermediate license, and this is the stage where the teen first begins to drive without their parent in the vehicle. But graduated licensing limits that driving.
The best graduated licensing systems require 50 or more hours of supervised driving during the learner stage, licensure at 16.5 years or older, and limitations on night driving and driving with other teenagers in the vehicle until the beginning driver is 18.
All states now have some elements of graduated licensing, and research study after study has found that graduated licensing laws are highly effective in reducing teen crashes. The stronger the graduated licensing law, the bigger the crash reductions.
These kinds of legal restrictions, reinforced by parents, let young beginners be mobile and get driving experience, but they do so under conditions of controlled risk. Protecting young people while they're learning to drive is really the essence of these restrictions. Graduated licensing programs around the country have reduced crashes of teenage drivers up to 30%. But in many states, the restrictions imposed by the laws are still weak. For example, many nighttime crashes of young drivers happen between 9 p.m. and midnight. But the driving restrictions in many states begin at midnight or 1 a.m. And some states don't restrict teen passengers, even though the risk of a crash goes up with even one passenger in the car. And with multiple teen passengers, the risk is 3 to 5 times greater than when a teenager drives alone. Driving around with groups of teenagers at any time of the day is a bad idea. And the highest risk for young drivers is after 9 o'clock at night with other teens in the car. This is when inexperience and immaturity are most likely to lead to dangerous behavior.
Gabriel always had a smile on his face, and so did everybody around him. The very best of kids. Adoro kept the rules. Everybody loved him. The driver was driving too fast. And there's one of Gabriel's favorite songs on the radio. And so it's party time, and she was in the back seat. And he was in the front seat, dancing with her. He was up dancing with her. And the driver might well have been distracted by that. Gabriel was not wearing a seatbelt. He always wore a seatbelt. He used to tell me to wear a seatbelt. It's late at night, multiple teenagers, radio going on, and not much experience in driving. And here he was in a moment of carelessness. An unguarded moment of carelessness, when he was dancing in a car instead of looking straight ahead with a seatbelt on. He was dancing with the girl in the back seat. And the driver was carried away also with the party that was going on in his car, is what happened to 16-year-olds. And the driver was not seriously hurt physically. The little girl was not seriously hurt physically. Gabriel's not here anymore.
Gabriel wasn't even driving. He was a passenger having fun in the car with other teenagers. Letting your teenager ride with a teen driver is very risky, and Gabriel wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Belt use by teenagers is lower than for adults, and for teen passengers, it's particularly low. Most teens who are killed in crashes aren't using their seatbelts. This is why parents should insist on belt use all the time for everyone in the car. Parents have a critical role during the very dangerous first year of driving. They have much more influence than is typically credited to them.
Parents are still the key decision makers about their teens driving.
With or without a strong graduated licensing law, parents can establish effective rules. First, know the law. Become familiar with your state's restrictions on young drivers, and then enforce them.
Parents are the chief enforcers of their state's licensing laws, and they can supplement the laws with other rules that limit nighttime driving and teen passengers.
There's a midnight curfew. It's 10 o'clock for us.
They have a very strong influence on how their teen learns to drive.
Take every opportunity to drive with them in bad weather, darkness.
You try to cover all the different driving situations your teen might encounter, so that the first time your child is in that situation, they've had practice and they know what to expect and how to respond. One of the most important decisions a parent can make is when they allow their teen to get a license.
It's not a given that once you turn 16, you'll be able to get your license.
Even though your teen may be pressuring you to get the license as soon as possible, the longer you can wait to let your teen begin to drive, the safer your teen will be.
It's been beaten into our heads enough, and drinking and driving is beyond stupid.
Parents should insist on no alcohol. Teenagers are less likely than adults to drive after drinking, but their crash risk is much higher when they do.
Distractions are a common factor in the crashes of newly licensed teen drivers. Cell phones and texting, for example, are a problem for teens because it takes their attention away from the driving task. And almost half of teens have reported that they've texted while driving, and even more have said that they've talked on phones while driving.
I do text and drive on the phone. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
You know, when you get that buzz or that ring, it's a habit. It's just a reflex to go and check your phone.
It is really distracting, and you try so hard not to look at the text.
There are a growing number of states that have laws banning cell phones for young drivers, but young drivers often ignore those bans.
This is one reason laws aren't sufficient. Another reason is that cell phones and texting aren't the only distractions.
It's really easy for me to get distracted with other people in my car, the music.
You know, you're constantly looking down at your GPS or fumbling with the papers in your hands.
Eating. I can't eat and drive. It's so hard.
Anything that takes attention away from the driving task is going to be more problematic for young drivers.
Parents need to send a clear message to their teens that they need to focus on driving.
One of the most important decisions parents make about their teens driving is the vehicle that they'll drive. And there are several features of vehicles that make a difference. The vehicle should be mid-size or larger. They should avoid really small vehicles. They should avoid sporty vehicles. And they should avoid pickups because these vehicles have a tendency to roll over and they're harder to handle.
The best vehicle choice for your teen is one with the latest safety technology, including side airbags that protect people's heads and electronic stability control. Teenagers often don't perceive they're at risk, and they think they're invincible.
You don't think that it's ever going to happen to you.
It won't happen to me. I'm young, I'm healthy, nothing bad's gonna happen to me.
Attitudes like this, combined with immaturity and peer pressure, can lead any teenager to drive irresponsibly. Their driving behavior is likely to be far different from when parents are in the car.
If I'm in the car with my mom, I'll drive the speed limit and make sure I turn on all my blinkers and everything. But if you're in a car with your friends on a Friday night, some of those things just kind of go out the window a little bit.
Graduated licensing programs are an important step toward reducing the risks for beginning drivers. But the role of parents is critical during the very dangerous first years of driving. We know what works. Restrictions on driving after 9 or 10 at night, and not allowing teenage passengers. These restrictions don't keep teens from getting to after-school activities or to work, but they do cut down on some of the most dangerous kinds of recreational driving.
Parents may not recognize how important their decisions are. Our research suggests that teens will stay safer when their parents stay involved.
We were taking a turn at 70, even though it's advised to take it at 35 or whatever. And we just lost control and just flipped, but we were all good.
We were in his driveway, he is in reverse and he floors it and he crashes into a tree.
She didn't have her headlights on and it was nighttime. And I was like, you know, you need to turn those on. And she just continued to drive with them off.
There was an island there, and so I went over the island.
I really wasn't paying attention, and I just made a right and almost hit 3 little kids.
It doesn't affect me directly. I'm not going to worry about it until it does.
You just keep going, but you never really get over it. You never really, it's no way in the world you can get over losing somebody, especially a child.